Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you join us live and via live stream for the 72nd Annual Roundtable Conference. I hope you enjoy the speakers. They should provide interesting and useful information on what's happening in our sport today and our collective future. Our first speaker is Jim Gagliano, President of the Jockey Club, who will give us updates on the activities of the Jockey Club. Jim?
Good morning, and thank you, Stuart. I'd like to begin by sharing some important background about the Jockey Club and its current strategies. In 2011, the Board of Stewards of the Jockey Club commissioned a report on the current status of the sport and steps to make it more sustainable. That report, first published at that year's Roundtable Conference and conducted by McKinsey & Company, recommended a very specific set of initiatives. Refocus on the best racing, retain the core better, enhance ownership, reinvest in new fans. And the Jockey Club immediately committed to the plan and made substantial investments in areas including television, aftercare, improvements to the integrity and safety of the sport, generating new owners, and we launched a first-in-a-generation new fan development program, America's Best Racing, or as we call it, ABR. For the past decade, ABR has increasingly used influencers to endorse, promote, and create content for the sport. More recently, ABR developed Stake in Stardom, a program in which influencers actually own a share in a thoroughbred. Thanks to our marketing partners, West Point Thoroughbreds, Final Furlong Racing, and others, Stake in Stardom has really taken off. For 2024, ABR has seen a 221% increase, year-over-year increase in engagement, and a 717% increase in video views. Here's a clip highlighting ABR's influencers.
What is up, ABR team? This is Griffin Johnson here. Today we're at Churchill Downs. It is Sandman's very first race. It's actually an amazing program called Stake in Stardom.
Really, really awesome. I'm excited, man. I'm really excited.
Okay, I have a secret announcement. I've teamed up with America's Best Racing and West Point Thoroughbreds, and now your girl's a horse girl. You know, I always dreamed of being a horse girl growing up.
This is just like you said, it's so amazing.
Absolutely the best.
This is incredible. Look at all these people.
In 2018, we updated our strategic plan to include a grant fund for tracks to upgrade their television production to high definition. We recommended an embrace of the sport of sports betting and recommended a more efficient scheduling of races. To better inform our public about our investments to improve the sport, in February of this year, we published for the first time our Industry Impact Report, which highlighted now more than $100 million in investments that Jockey Club has made in the sport since 2010. I'd encourage you all to read the report if you haven't already, and we plan to publish it every year. So where do we go from here? What's next? To start, all organizations rise or fall with the talent and dedication of its human capital. The Jockey Club has been advantaged by having many talented and devoted people work for us over the years. Our team has modernized the organization from its initial role as a breed registry into a technical and data-driven organization whose products and services have been essential to the growth of interstate and international trade. Recently, we announced the promotion of several members of our team into leadership roles to improve our service to the industry. Going forward, the Jockey Club and our related companies are now embarking on a series of new projects and services. As first discussed at this conference last year, the Jockey Club has launched a traceability initiative to better understand where thoroughbreds go after their racing or breeding careers. Here's how it works. The certificate manager for any thoroughbred that has not raced or been bred in the last 2 years will receive an email from the registry. That email will direct them to the traceability portal of interactive registration. The system will ask the manager to provide information on the horse's status, and depending on the response received, the manager would get one of several prompts. transfer the certificate to a new owner, file an appropriate report with the registry, or the manager would be presented with aftercare resources for their consideration. Unresponsive managers will receive follow-up communications from the registry, including phone calls. Data collected through this service will help the Jockey Club and other organizations to better target aftercare resources and improve outcomes for retiring thoroughbreds. Another new project we have undertaken uses artificial intelligence to name thoroughbreds. In this case, a customer can input their preference for a name, perhaps a prominent name and a pedigree, add a few other words to include with the name, and the system will generate a series of suggestions that follow the Jockey Club's naming rules and policies. We expect to launch this new application in the coming months. Yesterday, we announced a rebranding of several of our commercial companies into one, TJC Innovations. TJC Innovations enables us to meet the evolving demands of customers seeking larger, more robust data sets to fuel new technology such as artificial intelligence and machine learning. TJC Innovations will give our customers now a one-stop solution for technology needs, large and small. As part of this rebranding, we purchased TLOR, the leading provider of data services and products to trainers in North America. Working with Tracy Atfield, owner of TLOR and the founder, we will expand those services to other segments of the industry, including an app for owners to manage their equine investments. Tracy has built an incredible customer base with a practical set of tools and best-in-class services. We're very lucky to have her join our team. Tracy, I'm going to ask you to please stand and be recognized, and we welcome you to the Jockey Club team. Thank you. Moving further to the future, TJC Innovations has entered into an agreement with Halo AI to supply North American data to fuel their artificial intelligence platforms to facilitate breeding, sales, and racing decisions. And we look forward to working with other entrepreneurs using new technologies to unlock value in our data. Today, we're also pleased to share our plans for a new value-added service for every breeder of a registered thoroughbred, free lifetime past performances. Under this program, a breeder will receive an email listing all the horses that raced the previous day with a link to our Equine Line Lifetime Starts product. We expect this feature will be available ahead of the next breeding season, and we believe that our customers will appreciate it. Equibase Company, our partnership with the racetracks of the TRA, is also making substantial changes that are tied back to our strategic plan. Earlier this year, Equibase announced a program to make available a free full-year data set of entries, results, charts, and GPS data. We've had more than 900 requests for access to that data from developers, handicappers, academics, and researchers. We believe this is a very important first step to driving new product development for the sport. Equibase recently invested in a next-generation tracking technology called Real-Time Kinematics, or RTK. First debuted for the industry at the 2024 Belmont Racing Festival at Saratoga, this technology has dramatically improved the accuracy and collection of racing data, in most cases down to the centimeter. We've now installed RTK at Del Mar, and we'll be expanding its use in the coming months. At this conference in 2020, thoroughbred industry executive Sal Sinatra presented how a rating system would enhance equine safety, make ownership more sustainable, and make races more competitive. We agreed with Sal. And Equibase is working on a pilot ratings and handicap system that would be made available to racing offices at no cost. It's noteworthy that frequent changing of trainers, claiming races, is one of the risk factors identified by Dr. Tim Park in his address at the Welfare and Safety of the Racehorse Summit last June. Improving the safety of thoroughbred horse racing remains a long-time priority for the Jockey Club. Along with our steadfast support for HISA, The Board of Stewards yesterday authorized funding for research through the Racing Surfaces Testing Laboratory to develop new moisture sensing technology for the equipment used on our racing surfaces. We look forward to updating you on this multi-year research that's being developed by Dr. Mick Peterson and his colleagues at the lab. Which brings me to my final topic. I'm pleased to share 2 new recommendations from the Jockey Club Thoroughbred Safety Committee, which for more than 15 years has produced 41 recommendations to improve the safety and conduct of racing in North America, many of which have become bedrock to the regulation of our sport. The first recommendation calls for racetracks, beginning with those under the regulation of HISA, to fully participate in the maintenance quality system that is managed by the Racing Surfaces Testing Laboratory. That information has proven to be gold for those tracks that have achieved the nation's best safety records. The second recommendation calls for all racing-related necropsies to be performed using the AAP guidelines for necropsy of racehorses as a minimum standard. I hope the foregoing has better informed you about the Jockey Club's strategic plan, our dedication to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing. Please enjoy the balance of today's program, and we thank you for your time, your attention, and your support.
Thank you, Jim. Megan Rogers from the NTRA is now going to share with us the successes, challenges, and plans for the National Safety Runs First campaign. Megan?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the Jockey Club, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. Being invited here to speak is a first for me in a few ways. This is the first time I've ever attended the Jockey Club Roundtable, and it's the first time that I've been asked to speak rather than writing a speech for my boss or someone I work for. Now, many of you probably don't know me, and that's because I'm relatively new to thoroughbred racing. I joined the NTRA almost 3 years ago with Tom Rooney, NTRA's president and CEO. I live in Washington, and my background is in politics. I spent years working on Capitol Hill for a few different members of Congress, Tom being one of them. I ran communications in his congressional office and for his successful re-election campaigns. Then, during the last presidential administration, I served as the press secretary for the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, and the greater USDA at large. And now I tell you all of this to say that I spent years behind the scenes writing the speeches and working the teleprompters. So me being up here speaking in front of you today, instead of being backstage, is a little bit intimidating. I have been asked to update you on our sport's national initiative entitled Safety Runs First. For those of you who aren't aware, the National Thoroughbred Racing Association's Board of Directors represents virtually every sector of thoroughbred racing in this country. From breeders, owners, trainers, racetracks, wagering operators, and horse players. Under the leadership of Tom, we opened a Washington, D.C. office 2 years ago, right on Capitol Hill, with a team devoted to working with Congress to enact policies that benefit all segments of thoroughbred racing. By having an office in D.C., we've reinvigorated the prominence of having a strong National Thoroughbred Racing Association with a presence in our nation's capital. Now, we work on many things, but one of our primary focuses is on tax policies, specifically the renewal of bonus depreciation and other key provisions that are vital to the investment and economics of this game. By bringing on Tom, who's a former member himself, and by opening our office in D.C., we've demonstrated to lawmakers the importance of our sport, and the NTRA is constantly leading the charge to advocate for public policies that further our shared interests. During our fall board meeting, which was held in Washington, where we met with multiple members of Congress, it became clear that we as an industry needed to do a better job of proactively telling the story about all the positive things happening in our sport related to safety and welfare. Since we opened our office 2 years ago, we've been inundated with questions from lawmakers as to what specifically is being done in the sport to be as safe as possible, especially under the new law, HISA, which many members of Congress worked very hard to pass. It's our responsibility to keep the public and policymakers informed as to how much love and care surrounds our equine athletes and how our sport is constantly striving to improve, including weeding out bad actors. At the direction of Tom and our board of directors, and with some additional funding partners, the NTRA took this responsibility and ran with it, developing the Safety Runs First campaign, with the goal of shining a light on our sport's collective commitment to safety, welfare, and integrity. Of course, these reforms and investments include new uniform national rules under the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. But our sport's commitment to safety is nothing new, and these building blocks were set in place more than a decade ago. These earlier efforts have been amplified in recent years with investments happening in technology, track surface and veterinary protocols, the utilization of data analytics, and other key measures that improve safety. The Safety Runs First campaign consists of print, radio, television, and digital advertising. It also includes a website designed to be a continuing long-term resource for the public as the racing industry furthers its investment in programs and resources to help reduce injury risk and enhance the safety of its athletes. Here's a look at the 60-second television spot that was produced in conjunction with Chip Tuttle and his great team at CTP that aired in many major markets around the country and on NBC just prior to this year's Kentucky Derby, which drew 16 million viewers.
For centuries, the bond between horse and human has been forged in trust and hands-on care. Now the sport of thoroughbred racing is combining those timeless traditions with cutting-edge technology to raise our standards of equine safety to the highest level. Wearable biometric devices measure subtle changes in a horse's stride to help optimize safety and performance. State-of-the-art imaging technology helps pinpoint areas of potential concern for early intervention by expert veterinarians. And the sport's new independent regulator, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority, is using AI and enhanced data modeling to help prevent injury.
Opening quarter mile was a quick one.
From sunrise to sunset, there's an ecosystem of trust and care and a commitment to well-being. So win or lose, it's safety that runs first. To learn more, visit safetyrunsfirst.com.
In addition to this ad, we spread the message through earned media, like interviews, op-eds, radio hits, and social media. We utilized Tom Rooney and other members of our board, as well as prominent members of the sport, like Graham Motion and Johnny Velasquez, who helped articulate many of the good things happening in thoroughbred racing. We did all of this with one goal in mind, to tell the true story of the sport of horse racing and the people in this room who live it every single day. To let everyone know, from the casual racing fan to the avid horse player and everyone in between, including policymakers in Washington and in state capitals around the country, the full ecosystem of care that surrounds thoroughbred racehorses and how we as a sport are striving to do more. The early results of this campaign are very encouraging. It launched on April 22nd and ran through the Belmont Stakes weekend. The campaign included spot market buys in every major market across the country, supplemented by our friends at FanDuel TV, Fox Sports, and America's Best Racing. The campaign resulted in 190 million total impressions. And now that's people that stopped and actually registered our message. And it contributed to 100,000 clicks to the Safety Runs First website. Our message was seen by millions of people. Analytics and anecdotal evidence both indicate that our message is resonating. Now, two small examples. My colleague in our Washington, D.C. office one day got a call out of the blue from a staff person on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which is the committee in the House that oversees HISA, saying that they had seen our commercial during the local telecast for the National Hockey League playoffs, asked if it came from us, and then wanted to learn more about it. Another example just like that is we had an ad run in Politico, which for those of you who don't read it, is a political newsletter that comes out every day on a variety of different topics all across the country. The number of people who took a picture of that ad in Politico and texted it to me was truly amazing, asking if it was my organization and then subsequently wanting to learn more about it. And while this might seem obvious to many of you that live in central Kentucky or here in Saratoga or in Del Mar or other places with beautiful racetracks and acting racing communities, What we've learned is that this message penetrated far and wide and reached audiences that may not have otherwise seen positive horse racing stories in their daily news. As we move through the summer racing season, this campaign is evolving. And this is probably the most important part of what I'm going to say to you today, is that we need your help. We need everybody in this room to join with the NTRA to help amplify our message. We'll be reaching out to our members and to many of your organizations, asking you to utilize your communications channels to help spread our positive news. Social media and websites don't cost anything, and so your participation in sharing our content is easy and would be greatly appreciated. In addition to supporting this initiative through your communications channels, our industry is deserving of a long-term fundraising strategy for this type of campaign. Together, we can determine what that looks like. Where safety runs first ultimately lies in the hands of the people of this room. We need your help if we're going to continue to tell this good news of our sport in the face of adversity. We at the NTRA believe that this is very important. Just phase 1 of this campaign cost $4 million, and it wouldn't have been possible without many of the people in this room, including the Jockey Club, Keeneland, the Breeders' Cup, TOBA, the KTA, the NTRA and its board, and our other industry broadcast partners who contributed inventory during their shows. We really appreciate all that support and support moving forward. Now, in politics, we always say that campaigns are about storytelling, and it's often the best storytellers that win the election. This sport and this initiative are no different. This campaign needs to be active 365 days a year to keep the public informed as to what we as a sport are always doing to make thoroughbred racing safer. It's our job to constantly drive the positive narrative. We cannot rely on others to do this. At the same time, the challenges and threats facing our sport are not going away, and that is why HISA is so important to maintain accountability and uniformity. The work of HISA is working in making the sport safer, and the statistics clearly show that. Thankfully, we had a very safe and successful Triple Crown season, but we all know, no matter our efforts, how one incident can impact the narrative. It's our responsibility to continue to inform and reassure the public that horse racing today is the best and safest it's ever been, with a deep-rooted love for these magnificent thoroughbreds is at the core of the sport. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I look forward to working together to ensure that safety always runs first.
Thank you very much, Megan. It's tremendous what this campaign and the NTRA have accomplished for thoroughbred racing over the last year, and I'm proud that we've been part of it. California is an important state. We all know it. We all know it's challenged. It's important for breeding. It's important for racing. It's important for handle. Gary Fenton, who is a member and just elected steward of the Jockey Club, is going to tell us where California racing is, where it's headed. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is an honor to sit here today and discuss the greatest place to race a thoroughbred, Southern California. I am grateful for the opportunity to be in this industry and fully aware what it does for me and my family. Sitting in my role as the chairman of the Thoroughbred Owners of California, my fellow board members and I never lose sight that we are motivated to serve our constituents. We report to them, and that always keeps one grounded. I appreciate this role every day and will for as long as I have it. This industry is a wheel, and to keep it turning, we must always engage vigorously, but after the battle, shake hands and walk off the field together. We share one common goal: to maintain and grow our vibrant industry. We cannot do it alone. Our customers see us as one industry, not individual states, owners, trainers, or jockeys. As the saying goes, no one is bigger than the game. We are all stewards. The state I reside in, California, is a major part of the horse racing brand. Iconic racetracks such as Santa Anita Park and Del Mar have been part of the horse racing landscape coming up on 100 years. Del Mar, where we sit today, was built by Bing Crosby, who at the time was like Taylor Swift, the biggest star in the world. Stories of Bing bringing us Hollywood friends such as Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball, W.C. Fields, and Ava Gardner to Del Mar to frolic in the summer sun are legendary. Most of you probably don't know, but we start at 2 p.m. in honor of Bing, who once asked his racing team if they could start later so the boys could get in a round of golf. Of course, everyone knew the real reason was that some of the biggest stars in the world were out into the early hours of the morning and couldn't get up to make a noon post. Through Bing's weekly radio show, which he broadcast right from this racetrack, Del Mar became a household name. But Bing wasn't done. He also wanted Del Mar to be part of the American racing landscape. He bought Ligarodi to match race against Seabiscuit in 1938, and later, seeing too much controversy with 3 stewards standing over the finish line trying to determine who won a close race, hired a cameraman from Paramount Pictures to invent the first ever photo finish camera. Just up the road, Santa Anita Park, with its mountainous backdrop, has its own legendary history, hosting more Breeders' Cups than any other racetrack. In fact, starting with the first Breeders' Cup at Hollywood Park, which I attended, through next year, California will have hosted 18 of the first 42 Breeders' Cups, more than any other state, including 10 of the last 14. Recently, the California product exported throughout America continues to be at the top levels of racing. California has produced 6 of the last 13 Kentucky Derby winners, who all prepped in California for not 1, but 3 separate trainers. And in September, we will invest again in the future of our sport by unveiling California Crown Day at Santa Anita Park, which hopefully becomes the next big marquee day. Celebrities and sports figures still attend the races regularly. Just recently, both NHL star and horse owner Eric Johnson and the Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr celebrated their time with the Stanley Cup and Larry O'Brien Trophy on the very same day at Del Mar. But it isn't the decades of iconic horse racing moments that sticks out most in my mind. What I'm most proud of was the response of leaders, stakeholders, and our horsemen and women after 2019. You'll hear from Dr. Benson in a minute, but thanks in part to her efforts and that of the Stronach Group team, the California response to the 2019 incidents at Santa Anita created more effective safety reforms than any other stretch in American horse racing history. And it is clear from America's reaction to 2019 that we badly needed it. I was fortunate to be in the room when Dr. Benson, Aidan Butler, and Belinda Stronach laid out the initial and ambitious plan. Trainers do a tremendous job on the backstretch, but 20 eyes on a horse are better than 2. The detailed plan, crafted by California and carried out with the support of stakeholders and horsemen, laid the blueprint for helping get HISA over the goal line. And here we are, 5 years later, with historic declines in fatalities. It has never been safer to race in California, and we did it with dirt tracks. Economically, California is a major engine in the U.S. ecosystem. Nearly 25% of all U.S. handle is derived from California horse players or bet on California product. Up to 20% of the Keeneland yearling sales is derived from California buyers, and equally, we carry a big stick with Fasig-Tipton. Kentucky breeders are exporters, and California horse owners are importers, the biggest state outside Kentucky and Florida. Can you imagine these sales without California's biggest owners like an SF Bloodstock or Costa Horonas? Out here, we maintain a 3,500 horse population, and we do it on our own island, and with just income derived from wagering. California receives no ancillary subsidy like HHR or slots, and we divide that income in 2. Whatever is bet in the North stays in the North, which up until last month consisted of Golden Gate Fields and the Carp Summer Fair circuit. This amounts to $25 million in purses. The South generates about $85 million in purses. The generation is based on handle on our own brand and handle derived from California gamblers betting on the rest of the country. We are all connected. What's striking about the numbers The results are obtained notwithstanding the competitive imbalance. California is certainly outkicking its coverage. The handle on our product ranks second in the nation, only behind New York. How much more successful do you think premium brands like Santa Anita or Del Mar would be with subsidies? The incremental increases would carry forward and dramatically increase the bottom line of every sector of American racing. While our island has its limitations, we also afford many attractive opportunities, like the ability to run on turf all year long. In fact, 45% of our races in Southern California are carded on turf, and thanks to the exceptional annual weather, over 96% stay on turf. Del Mar Summer generally has a perfect record with no races taken off the turf. One of the 2019 safety changes was also the new notion of shifting cards and preventing lost days. Always running on inclement weather days was something our fathers' horses did. In doing so, we've maintained the fabric and legacy of our sport, but adapted to the times using technology and creativity. Shifting cards is safer for our horses, and the comprehensive advanced warning protocols allow horsemen to keep schedules intact. We took a risk, and it worked from both a safety and economic perspective. And earlier this year, a new Tapeta training track was introduced at Santa Anita to eliminate any interruption in morning preparation on those rare California days when rain enters the equation. Also on this island is an incredible nook we call Del Mar. Through 2 weeks of racing this summer, average field size is over 9 horses per race, and all key metrics remain strong down here in Del Mar. On the flip side, it isn't always rosy out here. Like many places in America, we've seen contraction, with Golden Gate Fields the latest casualty. And you may have heard we're having a spirited discussion on whether to continue with 2 circuits, one in the north and one in the south, or just one that would primarily reside in the south. Transitioning from an all-weather and turf surface to dirt only will be challenging for the north. CARF, which operates the fair circuit during the summer, applied for the Golden Gate dates. They promise fresh investment and the creation of a new brand, and the California Horse Racing Board agreed to the opportunity. This prevented the shifting of most of the $25 million in the north to the south region. But thanks again to the California leadership, this opportunity is not without guardrails. Objective benchmarks have been approved. The north must achieve viable numbers that support all of California. There is no doubt we want 2 circuits exported to the rest of the country. 2 viable circuits generate the most revenue. However, if you can't maintain 2 circuits at proper economic levels, you might reduce your brand to 1 mediocre and 1 Bush League circuit. Both sides are to be commended for coming to the table and setting objective benchmarks with all of California in mind, not just their individual circuits. As for what's next, California is actively seeking ancillary revenue streams within and outside our state to increase purses and lead to the economic growth for both California and the rest of the country. It is priority number 1. But our goals are also more expansive and organic, like increasing the awareness of our sport. I am reminded of something the great actor Ted Danson once said. When his biggest show, Cheers, ended, he felt years later his relevancy had waned. He said everyone used to recognize him, but now kids said things like, "You are my dad's favorite actor." Then it became, "You are my grandfather's favorite actor." He was forced to reinvent himself with roles that opened his world to new audiences. Like Cheers, we were once at the top of the sports world, and like Ted Danson, I now get stories from newbies telling me how their parent or grandparent used to love going to the races. With the safety reforms in place, this is a pivotal moment for us to reinvent ourselves in the eyes of so many Americans who have never been to the racetrack, only heard stories from a parent or grandparent. If there is a call to action today regarding California, it isn't to just send us money or horses. It's far deeper and more nuanced. Obviously, keeping California healthy is incredibly important. Long-tested data has shown when product goes away, the gambler, for example, doesn't simply shift the same dollars to other racetracks. A healthy percentage disappears. However, while economic relief is helpful, these are just Band-Aids on a sport that needs more. Subsidies do disappear, and we need to get to the root of the systematic issues and create our own growth. And this starts with a mentality that we are all connected, not just individual circuits or states. California buys horses from Kentucky farms and breaks them at Florida farms and then ships them back to California racetracks. The best ones are sent back to different states again to race and breed. California shouldn't have to seek external assistance. The American horse racing model should inherently support premium brands like Santa Anita Park and Del Mar, ensuring the industry's health and sustainability. If California has issues, it isn't just a California problem. It is a Kentucky problem, a New York problem, a Florida problem. We are all connected. The good news is that being on the front lines, I see progress is already underway. HISA has taken the first step to unify the states with uniform safety and medication rules. Another positive development is the strengthening relationships between leadership in California and across America. Within California, Santa Anita, Del Mar, and the TOC collaborate better than in years past, acknowledging that while we have different agendas, compromise leads to better outcomes. By extension, I can't remember a time when leadership groups across America had a better relationship and mutual respect. Keeneland, Breeders' Cup, and the Jockey Club are all taking active first steps to harmonize and look at the bigger picture over their own slice of the pie. While my primary task today is to provide an update on California, I also want to share my optimism for the future of California and our sport. We have highlighted for you many of our advantages, and I'm sure everyone participating in today's roundtable understands who we are and what we bring. Building on these strengths, we recognize the need to closely monitor the best resources to support 2025 race dates here in California. We encourage creative solutions from industry stakeholders to protect and preserve California, and within that scope, ask that California be fully considered as a state to race your horses. Just the addition of 200 race-ready horses would add tens of millions of dollars to ours and your bottom lines. When you think about it, that's a Todd Pletcher, Steve Asmussen, Chad Brown, and Brad Cox sending a string of 50 horses. It won't take much to improve California's already premium brand, and by doing so, the bottom lines of so many around the country are the bottom lines of so many around the country are dramatically increased. I believe we are on the brink of a new beginning. Just as poker, a nearly 200-year-old game, reinvented itself with the introduction of the hole card, we too can rejuvenate this tremendous sport if we work together.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to see you. You chose a pretty attractive studio there, even it is some distance from us. And I'd like to thank FanDuel for helping us bring you here live from California for your talk. Also from California, but here with us today, is Dr. Dion Benson. Dion will update us on the technology being used in California to keep our horses safe. Dion, glad to have you.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Jockey Club. January and February of 2019 were terrible months at Santa Anita Park. Horses were dying. By March, the track was closed, and there was a real possibility that the state of California would end racing forever. With a 2-month fatality rate of over 4.3 per 1,000 horses in racing, it was clear to all stakeholders that something had to change. This was an opportunity to change racing and training forever. With the trainers and owners ready to embrace a new culture of racing, track ownership, and management committed to putting horses first by focusing on safety and welfare. As part of this effort, several track protocols were adopted. Among those were medication regulations for racing and training, protocols that were quickly adopted by the state and emulated by HISA when it developed its equine drug and medication control program. Additionally, Santa Anita committed to having skilled oversight of daily training by track-hired veterinarians who are managed outside of the racing office. We also required private veterinarians to be involved in evaluating the soundness of horses training and racing by requiring them to examine those horses regularly. This protocol has been adopted across several major racing jurisdictions, including New York and Kentucky, and most recently, Florida. We also began saving horses who suffered injury but could be pasture sound. What we found out was not only could those horses be saved, but they could be ridden and have second careers beyond what were previously thought to be life-ending injuries. Finally, we mandated horsemen sign up for works 48 hours in advance to allow us to review those horses and examine as many possible. The last protocol turned out to be a huge undertaking. Santa Anita Park is one of the busiest training facilities in the country, if not the world. With 2,000 horses stabled at Santa Anita, most of whom do timed works almost weekly, the task of reviewing past performances, veterinary list history, previous examinations, and track veterinarian information quickly became daunting, taking between 3 and 5 hours per day. So I sat down with Aidan Butler, the now president of First Racing, to discuss how we could better tackle this task. As it happened, Aidan was trying to solve his own issue, namely horse inventory. As he likes to say, the supermarket knows how many cans of each brand of beans are on the shelf. How is it we don't know how many horses are on the backside, let alone where those horses are in their conditions? Clearly, the data veterinarians and the racing office needed overlapped and could be managed by a single program. The program would need to address a horse's racing history and trainer preferences while providing analysis of several safety factors to veterinarians working at the racetrack. This information had to be presented in a way that was easily accessible by both the racing office and track veterinarians. Additionally, to encourage adoption by horsemen, there had to be some benefit to trainers. Out of this discussion and a great deal of work by the talented team at First Technology, Racehorse 360 was born. Racehorse 360 is a program to help the racing office trainers and the veterinarians be more effective. For the racing office, it can assist in writing condition books. It analyzes not only which horses are on the backside, but also where they are in training. For example, have they worked or raced lately? Where the horse population in their conditions, such as how many 3-year-old and up maiden fillies are on the backside who've been racing for $25,000. Tailoring condition books to the horse population can provide more stability and predictability for horsemen and better field size for the handicapper and racing office. Racehorse 360 can also help identify how to order the races in a card based upon what kind of handle a specified race historically generated, placing higher wagering races more advantageously in the card to increase the handle. It can also identify eligible horses for carded races, specifically identifying those horses who are eligible for a particular race, and in conjunction with the health and welfare portion, it can identify horses who could potentially be scratched from the race due to veterinary reasons, allowing us to write safer races with fewer scratches. From the trainer perspective, it can also make their job easier. For example, trainers can identify parameters for each horse in the barn, such as distance, claiming price, and preferred surface. The program provides notification to the trainer whenever a corresponding race is written, which means they no longer miss races due to not being aware that one was written for that horse. They can also use the program to contact the racing office to request a specific race, for barn maintenance requests, and to complete stall applications online. There are several other ways Racehorse 360 can help the racing office, but I'm here to talk about racehorse safety. However, for those of you with questions, Aidan is here. For those of you looking for him, he's probably in the back. Thankful there are no longer assigned seats at this conference, and you can certainly contact him at the break. So, how can Racehorse 360 enhance horse safety and welfare? As I mentioned, we are getting workout requests from trainers 2 days in advance of a timed work. We review each request knowing we simply cannot physically examine every horse entered to work. Therefore, we prioritize which horses should be examined by track veterinarians the day prior to working. Most days we are getting over 200 workout requests. Some days it's over 400. The requests come to us about 2 p.m. and must be analyzed by 5 a.m. the next morning. That will allow track veterinarians to examine horses working the following day. When we first started doing this analysis, we would pull Equibase's past performance data on each horse, vet list histories from Encompass, intra-articular injection information from California Horse Racing Board's website, and our own examination notes. We then compared this data to each horse provided by the racing office looking for risk factors identified by Tim Perkins' research with the Equine Injury Database, as well as risk factors we identified locally. Sorting through this amount of information by hand was cumbersome, and it was easy to miss something, especially after you'd been doing it for a few hours. Using these risk factors, we scratched about 2.7% of horses examined for works during the Santa Anita Winter Meet. We didn't realize it at the time, but we were reviewing over 50 different risk factors by hand, plus each horse's physical examination history. On a Saturday with hundreds of workers signed up, it became a Herculean feat. Now, each horse is signed up to work is entered into Racehorse 360. The software automatically searches the past performance and veterinary lists for each of the 50 risk factors we have identified. On each horse's home screen, there are PPs, a list of risk factors, the vet's list history, previous examination, notation of whether the horse has been identified as lame on track by the veterinarian on the rail, we also call this flagged on track, and the track vet's risk assessment of the horse from high to medium to low based upon prior physical examinations. This allows a remote veterinarian to quickly determine whether a specified horse should be selected for examination prior to a timed work by one of our track veterinarians. To streamline the identification of horses to examine, they can be sorted by risk factors or exam-based risk level as a starting point. Horses who do not need exams are passed. The horses who should be considered for exams are sent to the track vets on Racehorse 360. Once in the barn, the track veterinarians can see all their risk factors, vet's list history, exam history, and flagged on track history on their tablet, along with notes from the veterinarian creating the exam list about why the horse should be checked. This is all done stall side, marrying the physical exam with the risk level of the horse without additional papers or the need to shuffle between software programs. This allows veterinarians to make better informed decisions regarding whether the horse should work. Examination results are entered into Racehorse 360, which are visible for future examinations in the program, as well as they link back into the Jockey Club's Encompass program, making it visible to vets across the country. Furthermore, veterinarians can take videos of in-hand and on-track jogs and link them to the horse's profile. So there's no question about what the horse looked like on the track or in the shed row in a particular day. Having this information in one place, as a veterinarian, deciding whether a horse should work is a powerful and enabling tool, allowing us to make better choices. Looking deeper, Racehorse 360 allows us to monitor horse welfare. For me as a track vet, one of the most concerning things are horses who stop working or racing yet are still at the track. Have they shipped out and we don't know about it? Are they injured? Or have they become even pony horses? Racehorse 360 allows us to quickly identify horses that have not recently worked or raced and examine them. If they are injured, they can be placed on the official vet's list, and the track vet can help ensure appropriate diagnostics are performed, and the issue is monitored as the horse returns to training. Racehorse 360 allows track veterinarians to be a better advocate for horses who may otherwise fall through the cracks. Now, as I indicated, FIRST has veterinarians at trackside at all of its facilities, daily in California, most days in other states. However, one or even two veterinarians cannot always see all horses on the track. This is where another part of Racehorse 360 called Track Optics comes into play during training and racing. Track Optics provides veterinarians with an additional set of eyes on the track during training. In one configuration, it consists of a modified stationary 4K camera set on the rail of a racetrack or training facility. These are small, inexpensive cameras that can withstand Laurel Park's winters, Santa Anita summers, and Gulfstream Park's humidity, frankly, better than I can. The cameras collect information feeding into a program that monitors 21 separate points on the horse and jockey with data from those points collected 30 times per second. The program essentially builds a rough skeleton of the horse. Alternatively, it can also be used with 4 overhead 8K cameras. This creates an artificial pan-tilt camera similar to the one used in racing, allowing for isolation of each horse, and it can capture data for every horse on a track simultaneously, even if there are 100 horses on the track. Regardless of which camera setup is used, the data is run through an AI program that filters the information and adjusts those filters as it learns what data is important. This allows the AI to make predictions based upon the videos, To date, we have captured 3,000 hours of footage and 12 terabytes of data from training at 3 locations. The more data we have, the more effective the AI will become. Here you can see the software in action during training. It can identify horses with obvious lameness, acting as an additional set of eyes for the vet. But it can also pick up a more subtle deviation in stride. TrackOptics was trained to distinguish between multiple horses on the track at the same time, even if they're both crossing in front of the camera simultaneously. And it can also identify horses versus other objects on the track, such as tractors. So instead of watching 5 hours of rail and tractors, it's only being used when the AI needs to identify horses. Within moments of a horse being identified by TrackOptics, Racehorse 360 sends a message to the track veterinarian, who could be at the track or anywhere in the world where they have cell service. The message consists of a video clip of the horse, allowing the veterinarian to identify the saddle, towel, and/or rider on the horse. The veterinarian can then contact the trainer to get the name of the horse, or if the vet is trackside, he or she can stop that horse and follow them to the barn for an examination. Once the horse is identified, the name of the horse, along with the on-track and in-barn examination information, is entered into Racehorse 360. The TrackOptics recording and exam information becomes part of the horse's profile. The system is currently running at Gulfstream Park, Santa Anita, and Laurel Park. Data is being collected daily, and we are reviewing clips to identify horses and potential issues. Approximately 2,500 clips that TrackOptics identified have been reviewed since the beginning of data collection. That data is used to retrain the algorithm using machine learning. To date, we've completed 2 retrainings of the AI program. The improvement in identifying horses with issues has been impressive from my perspective. As of today, of the clips sent by TrackOptics, approximately 75% of those are determined to be worth following up by track veterinarians. As we continue to collect data and train the system, the AI will become smarter. All of this will allow earlier identification of potential issues before they become significant problems. In addition to the training aspects of TrackOptics, the program can help us monitor horses in racing. By using TrackOptics with the pan-tilt camera employed at many racetracks, we can collect thousands of data points for each horse in every race, including speed, acceleration, deceleration, stride length, and distance covered throughout the horse's career. It can also provide information on placing and split timing by horse. This is all done without a single device on the horse. The way that we do this is through mapping the track using Google Earth and a few on-site measurements, which are verified several times throughout the year to ensure accuracy, and using that information to compare it to the horse's location on the track. So how does this help horse welfare? Well, recently I attended an IFHA conference on horse welfare and safety where some researchers proposed that a horse decelerates and decreases stride lengths in the several races prior to an injury. If this trend is consistent among injured horses, we have already digitized several thousand races and could simply run a query on the data for those horses who have been injured, comparing them with others in the same race. If it proves to be a risk factor with TrackOptics, this information could be captured and added to the Racehorse 360 risk factors automatically. The power of TrackOptics is even greater as it could be used for timing workouts, which means no more missed horses or estimated times from the clockers. Furthermore, there is even a steward's view module, which counts the crop strikes and generates video clips of each within a couple of seconds of the end of the race. This would allow our stewards to immediately determine if a crop rule violation occurred and provide video to back them up. At the beginning of this talk, I spoke about the first 2 months of 2019 at Santa Anita Park. Since that time, with all the shareholders working together and the technology we have developed to improve safety and welfare for the first 2 months of 2024 were a much different story. In January and February of 2024, and keep in mind, in February, we actually got 2 more inches of rain than we did in 2019. We had 0 racing fatalities. We saw a 40% decrease in training fatalities from 2019 to the first 2 months of 2024. These results are not an anomaly. As Gary Fenton's presentation showed, since 2019, Santa Anita has shown significant decreases in fatalities in each of the years following. In fact, from March of 2023 to March of 2024, we did not have a single racing fatality in 363 days. Our fatality rates are not yet zero, but they are now on par or better with racetracks not in just the rest of the United States, but the rest of the world. I am incredibly proud of the veterinarians, track management and ownership, horsemen and women, jockeys, grooms, and everyone who has made this possible. Thank you.
Diana, it's a great story. So I think back to 2019, and I don't think there was a moment when I thought we'd be talking about the success and how really wonderful it is and how important it is for the whole industry. Before we break for intermission, I'd like to share a video with you shortly after our longtime chairman, Denny Phipps, passed away in 2016. His good friend Earl Mack created an award in Denny's honor to recognize longstanding dedication to equine health. Earl commissioned the Odin Wagner Gallery and artist Gary Weissman to create a bronze sculpture for future recipients. And there's a very worthy group who've been presented with this award. Today I'm proud to announce that Nancy Kelly, who passed away in February, will posthumously receive the Denny Phipps Award this year. No one has ever been more deserving. Let's start that video.
Nancy Kelly wore many hats, literally and figuratively, during a 32-year career at the Jockey Club, and she wore them well. She was a welcome presence wherever she went and whatever she did. She brought her smile, her intelligence, and her sunny outlook to every endeavor. She was equally comfortable stuffing Thanksgiving bags for the backstretch community with other volunteers, or coordinating and overseeing a black tie dinner or a major conference. She was not only the face of the Jockey Club, but also the creator of a long list of fundraising events that benefited the Jockey Club Safety Net Foundation and the Grayson Jockey Club Research Foundation. As was her style, she typically worked behind the scenes, quietly organizing these events with unique venue selection, decorations, sponsorships, and wide-ranging promotion. Her powers of persuasion when it came to sponsorships, ticket sales, and donations to the foundations were legendary. When she asked an individual to make a contribution, the only question she usually got back was, "How much?" Her rich legacy lives on in the millions of dollars Grayson provides for equine research throughout the country. Nancy's respect and admiration for the late Denny Phipps was matched only by his admiration and respect for her. As the recipients of the Denny Phipps Award, they are joined again.
She was a great and special lady, and we will all miss her. The bronze statue will be presented to Nancy's sister Fran and other family members this weekend when they are in Saratoga for a race named in her honor and for the fashionable Phillies luncheon that Nancy created so many years ago. I'm not nearly as good as Nancy at asking for your support. So I will draw from what she meant to all of you and ask you to make a donation to the Grayson Jockey Club Research Foundation in Nancy's name. I know how much that would please her. The details are on the slide. We will now take a 10-minute intermission. Thank you for reassembling. Our next speaker is Joe Asher. You often hear that thoroughbred racing is the sport of kings, but Joe is proof that racing fans come from all backgrounds, and his is especially impressive. I'm borrowing a bit from an article written this past March in CDC Gaming Sports, not a particular magazine that I'm subscribed to. The short story is that Joe grew up at harness tracks and in foster homes. He learned to count cards when he was 12, and his first job at 16 was at Brandywine Raceway. From there, and I quote from the article, Joe became a racetrack publicist, an announcer, and moved on to become a lawyer. He owned a sports book, became CEO of a major sports book company and president of IGT Sports Gaming, and was appointed the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Woodrow Wilson International Center of Scholars, a Washington, D.C. think tank by President Joe Biden. He's now turned the Woodrow Wilson Center into an adjunct resource for the sports betting industry. Just kidding. I wanted to make sure you were listening. Joe is an expert on sports betting, and I'm pleased to welcome Joe here today to discuss how sports betting intersects with horse racing. Joe?
Thanks very much for that kind introduction, and we are trying to get some folks from the gaming world involved in the Wilson Center, so feel free to come up to me afterwards and we can talk about that as well. It is an honor to have been invited to speak at this event, and I'm especially pleased to have been introduced by you, Mr. Chairman. Like many racing fans, I learned about the sport from my father when I was a little boy. One of his favorite horses ever was Ruffian. In fact, we watched that match race on television together nearly 50 years ago, one of my earliest racing memories. I'm sure you know that she touched a lot of people all across the country. I've been in the round table once before, about 20 years ago, but that time I didn't have to do anything except make sure I was out of here in time to make the first race. Today I'm here because Jim asked me to speak about the intersection of horse racing and sports betting, and it's not hard to convince me to come to Saratoga in August. This trip is a special one for me personally because it's the first time my 11-year-old son Carson has been to Saratoga. We were in Northern Ireland last week because one of his sisters, Vivian, was playing in a soccer tournament over there. Of course, Carson and I persuaded Mom and his other sister, Sydney, to drive 5 hours to go to the races at the Curragh, a legendary place where I had never been. By my count, it was my 71st racetrack, but what an experience getting to see Aidan O'Brien giving a leg up to Ryan Moore on a young filly at that historic race course. And like any true racing fan would, I also insisted that we visit Giant's Causeway. Carson is my wingman when it comes to the races. A few days ago, we were in my hometown of Wilmington, Delaware for a wedding and made sure to catch a couple of races at Delaware Park. Typically, we'd be in Del Mar this time of year, but we had to leave early because of the Ireland trip. Here's an old photo of when they let Carson into the money room at Del Mar. Don't tell Josh Rubenstein. I'm not sure they were supposed to let Carson hold $500,000. Our other annual racing excursion is to the Elko County Fair over Labor Day weekend, which Carson will tell you is his favorite weekend of the year. Elko, for those who don't know it, is a small mining town in northeastern Nevada that has pari-mutuel racing 2 weekends a year. We play weekend cowboys and go up there for the races. It's a great time. As some of you may know, I used to announce horse races back in the day, primarily harness races in Delaware and in Massachusetts, although I did call the races at Fair Hill in Maryland once. Anyway, I came out of retirement 9 years ago in Elko. You can find the race on YouTube, and they let me call a race a day when I'm there. The reason I mention this is to partly give Carson a shout out. He's sitting right there in the front row. But also to highlight the point I touched on earlier, that for many racing fans, our introduction to the sport comes from family members at a very young age. I was introduced to it as a young boy by my father, and I have now carried that forward with my kids. Getting people introduced to racing obviously is the first step towards getting them to bet on the horses, own horses, or simply watch racing on television. And so I encourage everyone to look for ways to get parents to bring their kids to the track, whether it's the donut days that they used to have at Del Mar, the playground at Delaware Park, or other ways to welcome families. Another way to get people introduced to racing is sports betting. Sports betting, of course, has exploded since the Supreme Court overturned PASPA in 2018. It is now legal in 38 states, plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. However, it's worth noting that it's not yet legal in California or Texas. We have all seen the massive advertising for sports betting on television, social media, arenas, billboards, you name it. Of course, the heavy promotion by DraftKings and FanDuel goes back to their advertising for daily fantasy sports betting back in 2011. And it's fair to say that billions of dollars have been spent by sports betting companies to acquire customers in the U.S. In turn, the revenue for sports betting already is substantial. My friend Chris Grove, a super smart guy, who among other things works with Eilers & Krejcik, a gaming advisory firm, was kind enough to let me use two of his slides. They project sports betting revenue, which was around $11 billion in 2023 and should be somewhere between $14 and $15 billion this year, according to the American Gaming Association, will grow to approximately $20 billion by 2026. The 2026 projection assumes that neither California nor Texas have legalized sports betting. Obviously, those will be big markets when they regulate. It's turned into a very interesting market with substantial concentration. FanDuel and DraftKings together represent 75% of the revenue, and they show no signs of losing share. BetMGM, Caesars, Fanatics, Rush Street, and Penn, now branded as ESPN Bets, are the other major operators. Others are more localized, and some small ones are throwing in the towel, like Betway and Superbook did recently. I don't want to get sidetracked too much by it, but I often get asked whether the current market dominance by DraftKings and FanDuel is locked in for the future. I don't think it necessarily is. The first mobile phone that I ever had was a Nokia. Then I remember getting a Motorola flip phone, and then a Razr. Next was a BlackBerry. I was hooked on my BlackBerry. They're all gone today, or at least totally irrelevant. Apple and Samsung dominate the market. There's no doubt that FanDuel and DraftKings have a huge lead today, but that does not mean it will always stay that way. FanDuel clearly leverages the sports betting expertise of its parent company, Flutter, and as you all know, they own TVG as well. They are far ahead with respect to the integration of horse racing with sports betting. FanDuel has a common wallet, allowing customers to wager with the same account balance on either horses or sports. No one else has that yet. DraftKings has a common login, but not a common wallet, and that's a differentiator. When I was in Del Mar in June, I had lunch with Andrew Moore, who runs the horse racing business for FanDuel. Much has been written about the success of the Kentucky Derby this year. Most watched Derby since 1989, the year of Sunday Silence and Easy Goer. Record handle, Twin Spires up 22% year over year, and so forth. Andrew gave me some FanDuel figures that I found interesting. 750,000 FanDuel customers bet the Derby, including 200,000 first-time race bettors on their platform. I don't have the other operators' numbers, but I did find this really interesting. This slide shows the top free sports apps in the Apple App Store on Derby Day. DraftKings horse racing app was number 1. TwinSpires was number 7. That's good for them and maybe not a huge surprise. But check out the list of the top apps overall. This one did surprise me. It was DraftKings again, beating out Google, TikTok, Threads, and even Krispy Kreme. Like you, perhaps, I was curious as to why Krispy Kreme was so popular that day, so I did a little research. And it appears that Krispy Kreme was offering a dozen donuts for free if you downloaded their app. Now, I'm not a big Krispy Kreme fan. I much prefer VG Donuts near Del Mar. But even I would have downloaded their app for a free dozen donuts. It is very impressive that a horse racing app beat out the Krispy Kreme promotion on Derby Day. So, it was a great Derby across the board, but how much does that really matter in the big picture for folks who don't work for Churchill Downs or aren't smart enough to own its stock? It's one race, or maybe one weekend. Back when I was running the William Hill US business, I used to tell people that we did great on horse racing 5 days a year. The Derby, the Preakness, Belmont, and the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup. It was the other 360 days a year that were a challenge. Back to the numbers I got from FanDuel. About 30% of their Derby customers came back for the Preakness, and 20% typically for the Belmont, although the Belmont was up this year because it was run here in Saratoga, so about 200,000 FanDuel customers bet on it. That's all well and good, but the issue is how many sports bettors will bet the third race at Delaware Park on a random Thursday, or more importantly, how can we entice some of them to do so? A quick aside, I use Delaware Park in my example since I've been going there my entire life and now have a small ownership interest in it. I was there with my dad the day Spectacular Bid made his first start after losing the 1979 Belmont, and his first start with the legendary jockey Bill Shoemaker aboard. Here's the program from that day. It was a really big deal that the Bid was racing, and especially that Shoemaker was traveling to Delaware to ride him. This was before simulcasting in the Breeders' Cup, so pretty much the only time a regular racing fan outside of California saw Shoemaker was on television for the Triple Crown races and maybe one of the big New York races like the Jockey Club Gold Cup on ABC. One of the reasons sports betting is so popular is that millions of people are watching the games already. They follow sports news on television, on radio, and the internet. They talk about the latest trades, injuries, and so forth with their friends. A few friends and I text regularly about the Vegas Golden Knights contract signings and how that fits with the salary cap. It's also worth noting that the major sports leagues do a very good job with giving their fans interesting content. I think the NFL in particular does a great job with short-form social media content. I love being able to watch Rams head coach Sean McVay telling his quarterback Matt Stafford, "This is going to be your game winner right here," into his helmet when calling the winning touchdown play in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Or go back to 2018 when my beloved Eagles won the Super Bowl after Nick Foles suggested to head coach Doug Peterson that they run the Philly special on 4th down. It's tremendous content and just one of the many reasons the NFL has become such a juggernaut. Making the transition from watching or following a sport to betting on it is quite easy in most states. You just need to set up your account, fund it, and away you go. For recreational players, there's no additional work required because you already have the information that you need to bet. You can make up your mind on what to bet based on what you've watched and read recently. People are already spending a lot of time consuming information about the game they want to bet on. No extra work is required. Now contrast that with betting on the horses, where you have to buy and read the Daily Racing Form or some other handicapping publication, and then study them in order to form an opinion on what to bet. There's work involved in doing anything other than just picking numbers or betting on the gray horse. Brisnet is helpful for simplifying things, not just for beginners, but also for those who just don't want to do the work. I've got a good friend who's quite knowledgeable about horses, used the Ragusan sheets for years, and then he just got lazy and started betting almost entirely on favorites using Brisnet. I understand Equibase has some products targeted to beginners as well. But for a non-racing fan or a casual gambler just wanting a little action on a Tuesday afternoon, I'd like to see a simplified way of allowing people to make an informed wager. If you think about it, we now have millions of people across this country with legal gambling accounts. Sportsbooks are always looking for content to offer bettors and ways to have them betting on something other than the major sports. You have that content. A lot of customers simply disappear after the Super Bowl and don't come back until the start of the NFL season. Others stay active through the end of the basketball or hockey seasons, and of course some bet baseball, but there's significant seasonality in the sports betting business, and it is largely content-driven. Helping to fill that content void with horse racing is an opportunity worth pursuing, especially given the summer content in racing. Think about this. You have an unprecedented opportunity to expand the reach of your content and engage new fans. Millions of Americans now have sports betting accounts funded with money to bet. There's a lot of sports content, but it's nowhere near 24/7. And outside of football, most of the games are played at night, while horse racing primarily is a daytime sport. You already have the content. The incremental cost to position it for consumption by sports bettors is so small that you've got to give it a shot. One reason I think there's something to be done with this is the experience during COVID when sports were shut down. Sports books had no content to offer customers while their customers wanted to bet. At William Hill, we started offering Russian and Belarusian table tennis, and millions of dollars was bet on it. Few people had any idea about the skill of the players. They just wanted the action. In some states, the table tennis phenomenon continues, by the way. In May of this year in Colorado, nearly $14 million was bet on table tennis, more than golf, MMA, and boxing combined. It's just about the action. Yeah, I don't know what the idea of simplified betting information looks like. And to be candid, it's not entirely my idea because this came out of my lunch with Andrew Moore back in Del Mar. But perhaps it could be a project spearheaded by the Jockey Club or a group of racetracks working together. It was back in the early 1990s that the Jockey Club decided to take control of past performance information from the DRF through the creation of Equibase. So tackling issues related to betting information is something with a historical precedent. You have the content. It's just a matter of getting it in front of people with a proclivity to gamble and an easy way for them to form an opinion on what to bet. I mentioned earlier watching the Triple Crown and some other races on network television many years ago. Today, major races are still broadcast on television, but they're also streamed online for anyone to see. Day-to-day races are broadcast in some form for simulcasting or ADW purposes. We've got to get those broadcasts in front of sports bettors so those who want some action on the 3rd at Delaware Park while they're trying to pass a little time have that option. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is the silver bullet to save horse racing. You all know the myriad of challenges that the industry faces far better than me. But what I am suggesting is that there is revenue to be had and new fans to engage through sports betting beyond a few days a year, and that the juice is worth the squeeze. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you at the races.
Now we got all the pieces of paper. We got to make sure we get the right. Thank you, Joe. The Equibase team, under its new president, Kyle McDonald, has been working hard to ensure thoroughbred racing data collection is on a par with other professional sports in the U.S. And that data will be used to enable better storytelling for fans to better follow racing. In the coming year, Equibase will continue to expand the free tools that they offer for novice handicappers, and will be working closely with its ADW partners and others to create a new handicapping products to serve sports fans and sports bettors. Our key, did I just? Yeah, I think Jim, did I just do the? Oh, okay. All right. Our keynote speaker is Todd Gralla. Todd and his firm, Populous, design spaces around the world for sports and entertainment facilities. One of the goals of their designs is to improve the fan experience. As we all know how important that is in horse racing, welcome, Todd, and we look forward to hearing about some of your projects and getting an advanced look at what the new Belmont will look like.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate it. It's great to be here today to talk to you all about some great new projects across our industry. And don't fear, I'm very visual. The thickness of this is not all about text. There's a lot of pictures today. I think you'll enjoy it. So, just a few years ago, if you had, someone had said, Todd, you're going to probably be in front of the Jockey Club talking about great new projects at all 3 Triple Crown venues that are happening at the same time, I would say that's crazy. Not going to happen. It's amazing what is happening today in our industry, particularly here in North America. And I know that the agenda says I'm here to talk about projects here and abroad, but I think that we're on the really front end of a significant renaissance in facility redevelopment here in North America, and I want to focus here at home for that reason. When we look at the renaissance that's occurring, I consider it not unlike that of Major League Baseball over the past 30 years. In 1992, the Populous designed Oriole Park at Camden Yards opened. It's a very innovative project that broke a 50-year trend in cookie-cutter symmetrical ballparks, setting in motion a 30-plus year renaissance in stadium design. That continues today. And just to be clear, to clear up any confusion, at the time Oriole Park was built, our company was called HOK Sport, which was rebranded about 15 years ago. So that project was very significant. And over those same decades that we've been looking at Major League Sports kind of renaissance in stadium design, the racing industry invested heavily in technology related to simulcasting, wagering, and gaming. And I think we've learned how to do a really good job of integrating gaming and non-pari-mutuel sports wagering into our racing venues. We've demonstrated this at Colonial Downs recently, Sandy's Racing and Gaming, and multiple other venues. However, horse racing fell behind for that 3 or 4 decades related to the in-venue experience. Most professional sports recognized more quickly that the in-venue experience was critical to sustaining fans, and in particular, growth among younger fans during a period of really rapid change in consumer behavior. A very simple way to envision what's on the screen right now is a traditionalist is a guy that would go to a ballpark, sit in one seat, and watch the entire game. An experientialist is like our young man here, who wants to go to the ballpark. He'll buy a seat, but he wants to roam around the ballpark to seek new experiences, viewing positions, different food and beverage options, and they may never return to that seat that they purchased. So understanding these changes meant major investment in food and beverage, comfort, premium hospitality, unique experiences, key brand partnerships, and technology. At a time when the average lifespan of an NBA arena was 20 years, the average age of our racing venues was over 60. We know from our global sports and entertainment work that people want and will pay a premium for intimate connections and experiences that they can't get at home. The significance of architecture and design innovation has never been more important than it is today. Some of our recent projects, like the Sphere in Las Vegas, which is the world's most immersive entertainment venue, constant major renovations across professional sports where we seek out opportunities for unique experiences and have blurred the line between the athletes and the fans, and the new BMO Center at the Calgary Stampede. They've all established really unreal benchmarks in architecture, design, technology integration, branding, and hospitality. The buildings themselves are experiential, entertaining, and memorable destinations, and that expectation bar is being raised higher every day. Now, horse racing is unique in sports because of the players, the horses, the jockeys, the trainers, the individual owners, and others. It's also the oldest professional sport in the world, and it was the first organized professional sport in the Americas. In fact, the Maryland Jockey Club became the first chartered sport organization on this continent in 1748, some 28 years before the United States existed. Honoring this history and looking to the future, as well as putting horses front and center with experiences and intimate connections between the patrons, horses, jockeys, trainers, and owners, has become the design philosophy that's driving our horse racing projects. Let's take a quick look at the design for the new clubhouse at Belmont, which is on track to reopen in 2026. And let me also say it's how refreshing it's been to work with Mark Holliday, David O'Rourke, and their team at NYRA, creating a great new venue for New York. We can't do a great job unless we have willing and open-minded clients. The modern design for the new Belmont Park marks an intentional departure from the current Belmont style. It's boldly contemporary with the intent of being the New York City track, with Saratoga, of course, being NYRA's upstate country track. The new design introduces greater transparency and reduces the scale of the building so it's properly sized for changing needs and trends. Unlocking the infield, recapturing space down this stretch, and enhancing the backyard will allow NYRA to scale and adapt hospitality year to year based on the changing customer expectations, revenue opportunities, and of course, whether or not there's a Triple Crown contender. NYRA and the design team learned a lot through hosting the Belmont Stakes here in Saratoga, and this experience continues to shape some of our ongoing design work, particularly in the paddock and in the backyard. In the structure itself, there's over 275,000 square feet of infrastructure that will seat approximately 8,000 guests and feature a variety of club and dining spaces, food and beverage outlets, private suites, and indoor and outdoor experiences. There'll be additional capacity at the ground level to support events with overlay with up to 50,000 guests on the site at one time. The new building is 5 levels above ground, with outdoor terrace at the top level providing sweeping views of the track and the paddock under a graceful canopy. From food and beverage outlets to general admission, attendees to a variety of club and dining spaces, event spaces, and private suites. The design team was intentional about creating a building that would fulfill a wide range of needs and be utilized for events outside of racing. The paddock experience and connection of the horses and racing personalities is also a very important aspect of the new Belmont. We wanted every level of the new clubhouse to overlook the paddock and to have as much exterior viewing as possible to celebrate this area. The best way to show you the thinking behind the new Belmont design is to play a quick video tour through the site and the building, which highlights a lot of the different spaces and products and how we precisely place them throughout the building. One of our first major projects following the opening of Ascot in 2006 was working with Churchill to reimagine horse racing in Kentucky and the Kentucky Derby in particular. While some elements of the plan have remained the same, some have adapted since 2016 when we did the master plan. But the key strategies of focusing on hospitality, offering greater diversity of accommodations, and focusing on equine welfare and those intimate experiences with the players has remained our goal there at Churchill. Over the past 8 years, we've assisted Churchill in accomplishing a number of significant improvements focused on enhancing the horse racing experience and revenue generation. The total reinvestment in customer-facing facilities has been over $400 million, and I'm sure if you've seen the news, there's more to come shortly. Some of these projects have been small, but really focused on how to best activate and find greater value in trackside real estate, which includes the Winter Circle Suites, which provide owners with a finish line experience and is very close and adjacent to the Winter Circle. It also allows general patrons to know where the Derby owners are during the race. And in 2023, the Homestretch Club was open with premium trackside seating. This fulfills expectations of social groups that would otherwise not utilize suites and traditional premium spaces. They want to be as close to the action as possible, and they're willing to pay a super premium for a dirt-in-your-face experience. When we began the Starting Gates Suites project, it was anticipated that this facility would be mothballed outside of the Kentucky Derby. However, due to the level of hospitality services and flexibility of spaces within this area, it's operational year-round and is utilized heavily outside the racing for a myriad of corporate, private, and special events. And in 2023, we opened the Turn 1 experience. This facility was designed to replace temporary seating that was proven to be viable during live racing on an annual basis, but also was designed to provide flexible 365 event space. We believe that the temporary overlay facilities are really important components in scaling up venues for major events. There's often a turning point where physical facilities can realize more value, so those temporary facilities are replaced. The ground level in Turn 1 can support an event up to about 2,000 people due to its open plan and comprehensive food and beverage services. Its high degree of event flexibility is common among all of our contemporary venues around the world. Year-round activation is critical to financial viability and also supporting the communities in which these facilities reside. And perhaps the most innovative space at Churchill to date is the new paddock experience, which opened this year. This included key branded spaces for Woodford Reserve and Club SI. This is the most ceremonial place in horse racing, and we really wanted to see how we could best exploit its potential. Our concept for the paddock was notably controversial, and I'll be the first to stand behind controversial ideas, because unless we are able to challenge conventional ideas, we will miss opportunities for unique products and better experiences, which of course will generate more revenue. There's a lot of concern over having the open saddling stalls and people behind the stalls, but I think in the end that success was achieved. I think this is currently the epitome of engaging the public in racing in a very intimate and safe way. So now we have two awesome, great facilities bookending the Triple Crown Series. So what do we do with Pimlico? I think that a lot of you are aware that I have been part of the Pimlico story now for about 7 years, analyzing, studying, proposing different concepts. And we've recently been working with the MTROA, the new Maryland Thoroughbred Racetrack Operating Authority, to determine the best strategy moving forward. And I think in the past few weeks we have found that strategy. Of course, we'll be looking at the best opportunities for the horsemen, the patrons, and the community in which Pimlico resides. And unique to Pimlico is that it is a complete redevelopment. including new tracks, racing operations, and the spectator facilities. The site will be stripped clean after the 2025 Preakness. The solution will likely be similar to Belmont in that it will be scaled to fulfill day-to-day operations, but be able to scale up to handle the Preakness Stakes, Breeders' Cup, and other major events. Our plan also includes the development of an outstanding off-site training center to help take the pressure off the day-to-day racing facilities and will offer a low-stress environment for the training and care of our equine athletes. We've developed a really good design strategy over the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, it's a little premature for me to show anything at the moment, but we will be going public very, very soon with the design story for the new Pimlico. We've also been working with Keeneland recently, and in keeping with Keeneland's mission to be a model racetrack and to reinvest in the future of the sport, we're currently in the midst of building their largest project in Keeneland's history. We broke ground a few months ago, and concrete footings are going in the ground today. The improvements include relocating the administrative offices to free up space and add permanent hospitality, housing the new jockeys' quarters and saddling stalls. A new grand entrance will terminate the roadway coming into Keeneland grounds and improve entry experience into the racetrack and paddock area. The building addition will enclose the paddock area and increase patron seating to create a variety of new hospitality spaces, viewing experiences for patrons, and year-round special event space. And great care has been given to ensure that these new additions look and feel like they've always been a part of Keeneland. A key goal of our design was to focus on improving safety, repositioning the saddling stalls to provide a safer environment for the horsemen, and the patrons. The jockey's journey and location of the saddling stalls are designed to maximize viewing by the general public from safe locations. The project also includes significant new premium hospitality spaces, one of which is the Sycamore Lounge, which is named after Keeneland's iconic sycamore tree in the paddock. This creates a really elegant hospitality space with views down into the paddock and walking rings. Other spaces include a hospitality space dubbed the Tack Room and rooftop hospitality overlooking the paddock area and the rest of the grounds. This is just the first of a series of hospitality and operations improvements that Keeneland intends to undertake, and it will enable them to better host day-to-day racing as well as major events like the Breeders' Cup. So the level of investment in horse racing occurring currently in North America, I think, is historic. And these are just a few of the highlights that I shared with you today. At the same time, we've been working with Woodbine, Gulfstream, and Canterbury, as well as planning and designing the new race course at Qiddiya, which will be the new home for the Saudi Cup. Right now, this is our moment. It's our moment in time to take the reins and urge this renaissance in racing ahead. We have incredible people across the industry with the ambition, leadership, and vision to reimagine how people experience horse racing and engage more people in our sport, the oldest, most celebrated professional sport in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd, for that very informative, quite compelling presentation. We are all very excited for the reopening of the new Belmont Park and for the other projects that you showed us. We look forward to the transformative design you and your colleagues have created. On behalf of the Board of Stewards and management of the Jockey Club, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. The speakers we invited all represent different constituencies and areas of concern. To move this sport forward, as Gary Fenton noted, we all need to be connected and to work together. When we are not owning, training, selling, or in some other way engaged in thoroughbred racing, we like to speculate about what others are up to. That's just human nature on steroids in our industry. Let me discuss speculation about what the Jockey Club is up to and what we're doing about our future. There is a notion found in groups like the HPPA and others that we want to run racing. We don't. Had that been our objective, we would have not been so enthusiastically behind HISA, and particularly in ensuring its independence. As we look at our sport, there are three elements that will determine our success or failure: safety, integrity, and finance. We could not be more pleased that HISA will be responsible for safety and integrity. We'll try to be helpful on those issues, but they're in charge. Finance, on the other hand, is not within HISA's purview. It's shared across a broad spectrum of groups and entities, sales companies, owners, partnerships, trainers, and other partners in state government, and through the tax code, the U.S. government. If you look carefully, you'll find a multitude of challenges where the progress we need has occurred. But there are many other challenges where it hasn't. Let me mention some of the biggest. Most can be grouped under the general heading, the cost to put on the show. We are struggling with stagnant purses, even with greater reliance on increasing revenues generated by non-racing activities, a dangerous position to be in. Aging facilities, a great deal of progress on that. Populus's presentation shows there's plenty that's being done, but also plenty to do. The big question is, are they going to be paid for? And if so, who's going to pay? The fight to get our fair share of the betting handle and how we fit into sports betting, that was discussed today. Fixed odds. Are they attractive to the bettor? Yes, in many cases, but will be attractive financially to the industry. The sunsetting on IRS tax incentives that are worth billions to this industry, will they be extended? An industry structured to be perfectly fair, destructively compete by pitting tracks against each other for purse levels, stake schedules, and post times, constantly trying to lure trainers and jockeys to change venues. Plenty of supply chain disruptions in the lower end of our thoroughbred market, resulting in lower foal crops, fewer owners, and breeders. And with that, the devastation of the regional breeding industry as we have consolidated pretty much all of those activities in Kentucky. Please remember that without those folks in the regions, support radically diminishes for the bond issues and annual subsidies that can fuel the kind of regeneration that we need. Unfortunately, I could go on, but I will stop here, having, I think, convinced you that the Jockey Club will be busy in the years ahead. I predict we will work on every one of those issues and many more. We can't do it and don't want to do it alone. We need you. Thank you for coming, and have a great weekend of racing if you're here in Saratoga.